welcome to all of you. I'm based in Tallinn, and this is a good keyword because we started this episode with the 3 Baltic states, with Estonia in December, with a question which also, of course, is relevant for today, the question of inflation and, of course, also the consumer prices. But we are actually starting with a more positive outlook in this webinar, in this discussion, with high-ranked speakers, experts, with the former President Satlas, the beginning, very warm welcome. And I mean with the positive surrounding for foreign investments, and our focus, of course, is on the SMEs. So we are talking about what we have achieved in Latvia to be attractive for investors, for the tax system, and also with the liberal economic policy. But of course, we're also talking about the risk with the war Russia caused, and also the question, what does it mean for the stability, also in policies such as electricity. And of course, Mr. President, we also should not forget the political situation, the upcoming presidential elections in Latvia. And we are very happy about that you're opening. And thank you very much. And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. And I'm happy to be with all of you and share some views on politics, investments in reality, or even I may say investments, politics in reality. Because there are only two actors in this process: a country which invites investors seeking for better economy and better welfare for its people, and investors on the other side who are looking for bigger and safer profits. If we make it very simple, as it is a balance between profits and welfare. Investors are claiming all the time for better taxation policies, education, quality, labor force accessibility, and access to raw materials. That's they are designed for, to make a better conditions for their businesses. They will always be unsatisfied with existing present situation, asking for better conditions and predictability, which is fair because the drive for profit will always be there. On investor side of this balance sheet between profit and welfare, more or less is very clear and understandable. On the state side, politics, which are conducted and performed by different politicians, is much more unpredictable and very often slow and irrational because of political positions which may easily change in regular election processes on all levels, on state level, on the presidential level, as you mentioned, and also on municipality level. Taking into account these realities, some people may think that investors should look at the developing countries because they are cheaper and expenses are much, much lower. But we have to take into account that at the same time, these developing countries are much more unpredictable and very often very badly governed. So if we're looking at the global big data, investments flow not to undeveloped countries, but to developed countries. They are seeking for the best environment for making business. And cheap does not always mean profitable. And at this point, I will come to Latvia, Baltics, and Nordics. Baltic-Nordic political and economic integration is an essential for investment environment. Further integration will create much more favorable conditions for investments in this region and in every state in particular. Because if you look at the state, key for success is adequate and flexible decision-making. We all know that economy and the necessity for business people drives political decisions. And afterwards, the political decisions drive economy. That's true, very simple. But what can the governments and the politicians do? Taxes, for sure. They must be low and predictable for further calculations for businesses. Education, which must be future-oriented and meeting business necessities, because we are on development and very fast development of technologies, so the education must follow. And labor force, adequate in quantity and quality. And this is sometimes the most difficult question, because you can influence it by birth rate, and you'll get the results in about 20 years. Or you can stimulate immigration, which could be permanent or project-based. But then we come to the point of small nations. Small nations have concerns about immigration. And sometimes it makes for the politicians to make the immigration laws very difficult. But I will say it's not only characteristic of the small nations. If you look back, the British and French have fear of Polish carpenter. And now we have a Hungarian and Polish fear of cheap Ukrainian grain. So it's much more fear of competitiveness. And if you are not sure about your competitivity and productivity levels, then the concerns may spoil all the process. And wrong expectations may disturb a lot of good intentions. So my advice and my hope of this today's conversation is how to bring politics, investments, and reality much closer to each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sattlas. It was a wonderful input. Also, you clarified the tension between profits and welfare. We were talking about the importance of the integration between Latvia, the Baltics, and also the Nordic countries, also in the global framework, in the global context. And also you pointed out some important criteria and some misunderstanding maybe in terms of migration, immigration is a maybe helpful tool, and also all the challenges of technology and the tax system. Thank you very much for that at the moment. And I would give the floor now to our keynote speaker, Vilis Sinkevich, who is the deputy head of the Investment and Development Agency of Latvia. And please, the floor is yours. I think you got also input now again, and we are very happy that you're here, and we are delighted that you are giving us now your thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you for, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And yeah, Mr. Valdis Zatlers already gave a good frame for our further discussion for today. From my side, I will give some short keynote speech on what from our side, like from LIA side, Investment and Development Agency of Latvia, what are key challenges, I would say, and at the same time, opportunities as well. And for me, of course, it's absolute honor to stand before you here today and to discuss those challenges we are facing right now and opportunities we have in the future. Of course, as we all know, the world has been grappling with the global pandemic that has affected every aspect of our lives, and our region has not been immune to its effect, of course. And however, I stand before you today with a deep sense of optimism and unwavering confidence in our ability as Latvia, as a region, Baltics, and Nordics as well, in our ability to overcome these challenges and emerge more vital than ever, actually. Of course, to do so, many bold decisions have to be taken, and again, reforms made. First and foremost, let us acknowledge the reality of the situation. As I mentioned, COVID-19 pandemic has significantly affected economical development on a global scale, and Latvia has not been an exception. Furthermore, the recent Russian military attack, of course, attack on Ukraine, has created geopolitical uncertainties and economical risks. However, it has also highlighted the need to reduce or even end our dependence on Russia's energy sources and foster the Green Deal. Like all of Europe, Latvia has been taking active steps to enhance its energy security and diversify its energy sources, which will undoubtedly contribute to our economical growth and stability. At LIA, we'll already see first tangible results, actually in the green energy sector, which right now is one of the most attractive to foreign investors. So steps taken are already giving some results. Of course, we all know that competitiveness is crucial for growth in a relatively small, open economy like Latvia. The creation of competitive advantages and the increase in productivity must be linked to investments, and investments in human capital, of course, technologies, innovation, research, and digitalization. And what we see right now that nevertheless those challenges are all around us, and year after year we are not let's say stepping back on the positions we were in 2019, for example, before COVID pandemics. But still we see that foreign and actually domestic investments in Latvia are becoming more innovative, sustainable, and environmentally friendly. And this year's investment development agency's new projects pipeline already has more than 40 new projects, and total expected investment could exceed 2 billion euros. And we are talking only about first 4 months of this year. And I would like to emphasize that 90% of those investments will be implemented in the smart specialization sectors, which are smart energy, ICT, bioeconomy, biomedicine, smart materials, and photonics. So this trend, in my opinion, already is a testimony to our region's immense potential to attract smart investments and promote sustainable growth. So, of course, the state's responsibility is to facilitate these processes, and the Ministry of Economics has elaborated and approved numerous support programs, providing funding to the digital transformation of companies, including grants for process digitalization, new digital products and services, development digital skills of entrepreneurs and employees, and support for increased productivity. For example, support for R&D activities, support for SMEs, startups, for commercialization, export facilitation, etc. So there will be in total more than 700 million euros foreseen in the forthcoming years to support these critical activities I've mentioned. And of course, our ability to adapt the education system, make it meet modern demands and requirements, improve and promote the process of lifelong learning, invest more in research and development, continue to strengthen the rule of law, improve migration regulations and procedures, reduce bureaucratic obstacles, and promote effective use of existing and future infrastructure. It will be, I think, that the key for the successful and way how to continue to attract investments and how rise our competitiveness here in Latvia, in Baltic region as well. So, and in conclusion, let us remember that Latvia has strong ties with our neighbors from Lithuania and Estonia. Although we are competing in attracting FDIs, together we have potential to be a significant investment and growth region in Europe, in my opinion. So joint projects like Rail Baltica or Elvind strengthen our positions and make us more attractive and visible for foreign direct investments. And I think we have resources, talent, and government support to achieve this goal. So let us continue to work together to create a bright future for our region and each of our countries, so where business can thrive and people can flourish. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Phyllis, maybe one point or 2 points I would like to ask you directly back before we are going further. The importance of the Rail Baltica you just mentioned, I think it's a point, or maybe, I mean, the point of infrastructure, how important you would evaluate it for investments, basically.
No. I would look on it from perspective, first of all, of connectivity of the region, of course. For Riga, it's great that we are having this connection to our airport, which is central hub in Baltics. So this is facilitating us as a country, of course. And what we see from interest of foreign investors. Actually, Rail Baltica is right now one of the top priorities for those big investors. They are looking for the opportunities to establish their companies here to produce something for the Rail Baltica. So I think it's quite important for overall investment in Latvia and in the region as well. So they are participating actively in procurements. So we'll see. I think it will be booming.
Thank you very much. At that point, and then I would give over the floor to Maris Wajnowskis, and I think it's perfectly fitting because you have long-time experience in the banking sectors and different positions, leading positions, and also you're in the board for foreign investments. So please, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Florian, and it's a real honor to be on this webinar today. And I fully agree what President Zatlers said and Mr. Zinkevich's reflections. So I will not repeat those, but I will maybe add additional reflections and observations, but also some challenges. Right. So yes, indeed, I have been serving on Foreign Investors Council for more than 13 years on the group which takes care of investment security and protection. Because, yes, there are economical factors, there is, tax regime, there is access to labor, there is inflation. All those are very important aspects in decision-making process. But, the feeling, and not only feeling, but confidence that your investment is secure and protected here from the system is so important in every investor decision-making. And so what we have done recently, FISIL every year measures the sentiment index of the foreign investors in Latvia. And the most recent has come out. And well, as a representative from the investment security and court efficiency working group, I am pleased to observe some real, progress in that respect. Because 40% of the investors say there has been positive change, and 13% say there has been, visible and real positive change in that respect. And it is very, very important also if we talk about the geopolitical challenges, and also a simple question like, well, are investors really afraid of the war, the Russia's war in Ukraine and all of that? So based on the sentiment index, I am pleased to observe that 79% of the investors who are already currently doing business in Latvia think about increasing their investment even further. And that has been, I mean, this number is really large. It is the largest since several years that I remember. So this is clearly a positive sign that those investors who are already in the economy still think about further increasing the investment. And well, dear participants, foreign investors are very welcome to Latvia. So especially obviously from Europe, from our strategic partner states. And where in Latvia, just give a few more examples. So 1/8 of the companies are, let's say, majority are foreign investors in Latvia. But this 1/8, they basically pay 40% of the taxes into the economy and ensure 40% of the turnover, and basically employ very sizable part of our workforce. So therefore, you see the numbers are telling Latvia cannot ignore foreign investors' interests. They're fundamental for our economy. And I think based on all my observations, well, you can always criticize, you know, politicians and all of that and governments. That is fair when it is constructive criticism. So we move together. But in terms of investment, security, and protection, I could just mention a few things that our economy and our governments have really improved within the last years. For instance, that is, you may have heard some horror stories several years ago about how insolvency system is working or actually not working in Latvia. So Latvia made a reform by turning the insolvency administrators into state officers, right? With all their obligations to report their income, and they're now under a great kind of state supervision. So that was a clear reform. Latvia also went through arbitration courts reform. So there were too many. Can you imagine more than 200 arbitration courts in Latvia? And you kind of get the feeling that there might have been some abuse within these systems. Why so many arbitration courts, right? So Latvia went through and made it, you know, compliant regulation in that respect. Also, when you talk about you need access to justice, and you need rather speedy access to justice. And what Latvia did, they implemented and that was a fiscal, clearly also suggested reform on the like specialization of our commercial court, right? So Latvia installed an economical matters court, which is a specialized court which looks at both civil and also the criminal issues related to economics. And you know, now this court, it has already operated almost 2 years. They reviewed a case in 100 days, you know, less than 100 days, and which is actually one of the top results in Europe. And several years ago, we were only dreaming of this kind of like speed and professionalism. So there was some criticism about, you know, this court when it was set up, also some resistance, but this reform has proven effective. So based on these few examples, I hope you see that Latvia, as a smaller economy, as a smaller country, can adjust, is capable of implementing reforms, is capable of doing it actually quite swiftly, and there are real results. So in that way, I would like really to confirm these words of encouragement for you, because both businesses, small, medium, and large, are very welcome to the economy. Now, and yes, you mentioned, Florian, about the financial system, just a few reflections on that and a challenge. Right, so yes, at the moment, what I wanted also to mention about our financial system. So you may also recall several years ago that Latvia was on the edge of even being grey listed by the Moneyval for because of this historical vast amount of Russian and other investors, depositors' money within our banking system, and that was a huge reshuffle several years ago that the banking system has now delivered on the results. Latvia is the only country, if I'm not mistaken, maybe somebody has already done it, but the only country who has successfully implemented over 40 FATF recommendations on the compliance of our financial system. Therefore, yes, it is not so speedy to open a bank account here. So now we are at the moment discussing, of course, about the balancing. So Latvia's financial system, I can say with full confidence, is now very compliant, right? So basically, absolute majority of the gray money, of black money, is out of the system, and basically at the moment the financial sector is very compliant and open to new opportunities within the European Union's Green Deal, taxonomy implementation, all of that. But here I would like to end on a challenge, because when we talk about smaller market participants, SMEs, it is so important, and I think it's not just Latvia's challenge, but I think more generally to not just talk about the Green Deal and the green investments, but actually to show the opportunities of investment of the business, right? So how to get access to sustainable finance, to facilitate sustainable finance, to provide, reasonable policy, which kind of grants reasonable, benefits to those companies who implement the sustainable agenda, maybe even ahead of the schedule, right? So, and this is where we have the challenge, and every country has a challenge, but Latvia must be very, I would say, friendly and open, and providing these channels of communication with the investors, with the market, about the opportunities, not just obligations, but opportunities arising of the implementation of EU taxonomy and the Green Deal. And I wanted to close this initial remarks on another challenge, which basically the investors say is very relevant. Now, put it simple, if there is a state, public sector is a big client, right? So it procures a lot of services, a lot of goods, and the public procurement system is still far from perfect. When we look at the the cheapest price is still the main denominator for, or the lowest price for, 2/3 of public procurement. And is it really the best denominator when you talk about sustainable procurement of goods and services, just to say the lowest price? And this is something, some kind of a attitude change, the change of policy, because if state wants to procure sustainable services and goods, they should also write the requests for proposals which call for sustainable bids. And I think this is where we work together with the government, and this is, in terms of investor sentiment, new investor sentiment, a real comment, a real to-do request from the public sector side to reform, upgrade, and make more sustainable procurement, more green procurement, more innovation-based procurement, and to think about how to, in quality way, develop this need. Most economically advantageous tender is not necessarily the absolute cheapest tender. And yes, and Latvia has a little bit stumbled on some of those issues just with the cheapest price. In the end, they know it is not the cheapest, you know. So yes, these were my initial reactions. I'm happy to reflect also further.
Thank you. We believe so. It was fantastic that you also have the passion, and you also brought us, I think, a lot of further also with your approach, encouragement. I think it's very important, and also what you said about the consequences of the Green Deal for the SMEs, which is in our main focus. So thank you very much at the moment. And I give further now the floor to Mr. Oleks Krasnopiorov. As a German, sorry for my spelling. Please forgive me that I still have to adapt a bit. So you're basically chief economist of the Bank of Latvia, and I mean, I think we should develop a bit further also the insights. Also, what you just said, dear Maris, the point about the consequences for the investment due to the new change of the world order and the Russian aggression or the war. So it was also very interesting what you pointed out, because I know from the German market, for example, that many also business delegations are concerned not to come here to the Baltic regions, especially after the war. I saw that many delegations said, "Oh, we are afraid that of this situation." So it's also important to give us also some confidence that it doesn't affect your economics and also not the European economics. Yeah, so please, Oleks, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Florian. In my view, the most profitable investments are in regions with strong growth fundamentals, in which economic development potential was not yet fully implemented. And in my short speech, I will argue that this is precisely characteristics of Latvia. So let's begin with strong growth fundamentals. There is a strong income convergence process in Latvia. 30 years ago, GDP per capita in Latvia was just about 30% of the European Union average, but today it is 74% of the EU average. And 30 years ago, countries like Greece and were significantly more developed than Latvia. Today, GDP per capita in Latvia is similar to that in Greece and some other countries in the south of Europe. So, and contrary to southern European countries, Latvia continues its way for convergence. And this strong income convergence in Latvia was based both on productivity growth and employment growth. Productivity growth partly reflected a structural transformation of Latvian economy, decreasing the share of sectors with low productivity and increasing the share of sectors with high productivity. But also there was a strong productivity growth in each sector of the economy, reflecting accumulation of physical capital, rising education standards, and growing total factor productivity. And there is a strong economic growth both in the capital city Riga, but also in other regions of Latvia. And if we speak about our capital city Riga, it is one of the fastest growing capital cities in Europe. GDP per capita annual average growth rate was 6% over the last 20 years, while in some other capital cities like Stockholm, Helsinki, or Vienna, GDP per capita annual growth was only about 2%. And today, GDP per capita in Riga is already close to the EU average. At the same time, strong growth fundamentals are not yet fully implemented in here in Latvia, because in the EU, other countries, Lithuania and Estonia, income convergence was even faster than in Latvia. For instance, 15 years ago, GDP per capita GDP per capita in Latvia and Lithuania was very similar, but today Lithuania is #1 in the among 3 Baltic countries. Income level is almost 90% of the EU average, so 87% in Estonia and only 74% in Latvia. So the question is whether there is any fundamental reason why Latvia should always lag behind Estonia, Lithuania, and Scandinavian countries. And my answer to this question is no. There is no any reason why Latvia should always lag behind. So one day Latvia will catch up. Today Latvia still lags behind in many indicators: quality of education and healthcare, satisfaction with the quality of life, and many others. But there is nothing you cannot improve with structural reforms. So structural reforms is a key to improve the standards of living, and Latvian authorities understand this well. Some people say that there is one factor which you cannot improve with structural reforms: small and declining population. I don't agree with this view, because countries with large populations on average are not richer and are not growing faster than countries with small populations. The same with population, the density. So population density in Latvia is similar to that as in Estonia or United States of America, and bigger than in Finland. Why then all these countries are richer than Latvia? And also regarding this declining population, why population decline in Latvia over the last 20 years was faster than in many other European countries? Because of 2 emigration episodes just after entering the EU in 2004 and after the global financial crisis in 2008. But these emigration episodes simply reflected income gap and unemployment gap. When in Latvia income was much lower than in advanced EU countries, but unemployment rate was much bigger, there was a big emigration. Today, income gap is not as big, and also unemployment rate is just at par with the other EU countries on average. So also net migration is close to 0, meaning that number of immigrants is at par with the number of immigrants. Should we raise immigration to Latvia? In my view, quality of people matters, not quantity of people. So we need specific high productive skills of our people, but all countries need these skills, not simply the number of people, right? Because there is no way how low-skilled immigration can raise Latvia's income level. And the same is true regarding cities also. Riga will never become New York, and it doesn't need to. It is enough to become the best version of yourself. There are many advantages of small cities to attract highly skilled and creative people from very big cities, and these people, when they will come to Riga, will then bring investments, entrepreneurship, and that is why economic growth. Clean, authentic, and unique environment, better organization of urban space, more convenient life rhythm of the people, greater opportunities to stick to a healthier lifestyle, social proximity, greater opportunities to engage in community life. So across all European cities, exactly smaller cities are even more satisfied with the quality of life than very large European cities. And this means that Riga can significantly raise its income level and the quality of life, even with its present population. So the main conclusion from my short introduction is that Latvia has strong growth fundamentals reflected in a strong income convergence, but these growth fundamentals were not yet fully implemented. So therefore, for instance, real estate prices in Latvia are still lower than in Estonia, Lithuania, and many other European countries. So in my view, this is the best moment to implement these investments. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Riga is not New York, but it's a wonderful city anyway. So thank you for your inputs, and also basically on the one hand, we pointed out at the beginning what Mr. Sattler said, how important it is, the integration in the region, also in the Nordics. But on the other hand, as he also emphasized now, is that Latvia is going its own way and has its own advantages in also attractiveness for investment and so on. I think this is also a very important point. And the other point we should tackle, also due to the pressure of migration in the future, concerning all the prognosis, is how to deal with that. As you said, on the one hand, we need skilled workers. On the other hand, we have to be open society. So it's also, I think, a big challenge for all of our countries and also for the EU with different approaches. So thank you very much for that at the moment. And now we are coming to Gunter Scholes. Gunter Scholes is basically partner at Ernst & Young and also has strong ties to the American Chamber of Commerce. And we're very happy that you're here. And Gunter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Florian. Let me share a couple of perspectives from various experiences which I gathered during my everyday life. And I would say one is really the initiative of American Chamber of Commerce, where we are looking at investment attraction and attractiveness aspects in Latvia. And the second angle I'll take is from EY, where I'm heading the transactions and M&A practice in the Baltic countries, where I see foreign investment coming into the country, both greenfield and acquisitions of companies. And a survey, which we are doing all across the world on attractiveness survey, where we benchmark countries, how attractive they are for investment. Putting all of those views together, I'll initially state that Latvia is basically underinvested in terms of capital that is needed for the growth of the country. And historically, it is in a way that we don't have capital which would have been accumulated over many generations and compounded in many ways. And this private capital is locally lacking, and also foreign capital, which has been coming in since 1990s, has not exactly filled the gap to capture all of the opportunities which are in the country. On leverage side, on debt, we can see that in many aspects, Latvia is the least leveraged country in terms of borrowings, either by households on mortgages or SMEs and companies, where, let's say, some would argue there is a lack of let's say that there is certain inefficiency, that banks do not want to lend, or companies actually do not want to borrow as much. And that debate leads basically to a situation where we see that some of the growth opportunities which are in the country are not necessarily captured, even if there is, let's say, good product or good service of the company which could be growing much more faster. This opportunity is not really captured. What we see from the attractiveness survey of EY, we see responses that investors who both are here but also who are not here and have considered both Baltics and specifically Latvia as investment destination have plans to increase their investment in Latvia that is consistent with observations of Foreign Investors Council sentiment survey. Then again, we also see some real interesting observations, like comments on the government not being very active on trying to proactively attract investment. And despite of all of the good work that LIA is performing, for example, we see our neighboring countries putting a lot of more resources at investment attraction. And that would be probably a message to our government saying that, okay, you really need to both increase priority on investment attraction, but also spend more money on attracting investment, which is not really the case in Latvia as compared to our neighboring countries. And second point is also on the PR image of Latvia as an investment destination. I would say we are probably perceived way lower than the actual reality is, also because this investment into PR for the country has not really been there. So we as Latvians like to awfulize a little bit of how good things or bad things are, and in this sense that could be potentially changed in the future. And finally, in terms of investment coming to the country, all of you listeners would definitely know that investment decision is a very complex one. It is like a puzzle where you need to get at least, let's say, 10 pieces of puzzle fitting perfectly together. So there has to be, let's say, market opportunity, there has to be labor force, there has to be infrastructure in place, tax regime has to be attractive, etc., etc. And in many aspects of this, Latvia has all of the right pieces of puzzle. We can say that, let's say, telecommunications infrastructure is among the very best in Europe, actually. And then skilled labor is typically available, but there are some shortages which are basically a result of some decisions which were maybe made 10 or 20 years ago. And in investment attraction and attractiveness, you would also understand that a lot of pieces of puzzle, it's not something which you can change overnight. Those are investments and bets which have been placed, let's say, 10 years ago into education system or health system, for example, making sure that labor force is healthy, is in the right specializations in future professions, which will be demanded by local and foreign investors eventually. And some of those topics Latvia has got right, and some of those not necessarily. And I would say altogether, we see right now rather increasing attractiveness and interest from foreign investors to Latvia at the moment, despite the geopolitical challenges. And once again, it goes back to this opportunity to be captured as for this set of components which are needed for investment and which will be making potentially returns on such investment more attractive than in other regions. We have those pieces of puzzle better than some other countries. And yes, why we lag, as mentioned by previous speakers, as compared to other countries, I would say yes, half of that. In some areas we may be lagging, but the biggest area where we lag is actually PR of the country. And that is something which can be improved by everyone from the government side and private sector side. So if you would be considering making investments in the Baltics, in Latvia specifically, I would encourage to talk to some of the investors who are already here and are actually planning to increase their investments even further. So on that note, Florian, I would pass back to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Guntas. I have now one question, basically, which came in my mind, which we haven't tackled too much until now. All the question now of digital disruption. Of course, now recently, all the debate on artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, but also with the neighbor, the big neighbor next door, the question of cybersecurity. Yeah. So how you see this, basically these three dimensions now for investments and also for the aspects we have raised. So maybe I would start with Maris about that.
Oh, yes. I mean, investment in resilience of our systems, cybersecurity is, key aspect. Therefore, when we talk about investments, when we talk about the investor sentiment, the digital transformation obviously includes this absolutely important part of compliant, resilient, safe, and secure IT systems. We know that the bank, for instance, I can mention that the regulator, the Bank of Latvia, takes this extremely seriously. They have now published, and I think it's also a very good practice that they now publish their supervision guidelines for this year for all market participants, like to everybody, so that it is no secret, what the bank is supervising, what the market participants get as a message from the regulator, and one of the key messages is that the supervision of the IT systems security and resilience will be checked both in detailed audits, in these kind of stress testing audits, in joint work, in cooperation between the regulator and the financial sector. So I think that, Florian, is a clear challenge. I myself, I'm getting also, these spam emails, these calls, right? Even as a client of banks, yes, I'm also getting these statements that some kind of payment has been blocked or something else. I mean, this fraud is all over the place, these attempts. But I feel rather secured and confident that both the regulators and the bankers are looking at it, and not only looking but investing. And I think also consultants. I think Gunters is doing EY and all can maybe comment further, because they work directly with the businesses, and obviously we have the regulator on the call as well, the Bank of Latvia.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, directly, please, Gunters. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So on the use of digital tools, I'll just share one reflection that Baltic countries in general have been really at the forefront of using all of the modern digital tools in everyday business much earlier than other European countries, for example. And it was partly, let's say, driven by need, because, let's say, how do we gain in efficiency competition with other countries? And it was much easier for us to do with digital tools. And that it was easier for us also to achieve, since we are small countries, relatively small businesses generally, and small infrastructure, which could be turned a little bit easier than in the large countries. And the specific examples I would use, for example, internet banking platforms, both for retail customers and corporates, are way more advanced and sophisticated than, let's say, elsewhere in Western Europe. Let's say use of digital signatures for agreements, that is actually something which we had years before COVID. And when, let's say, during COVID times, my colleagues were saying, okay, there is now this fantastic, let's say, opportunity to sign documents digitally. And they mentioned it from UK. I said, well, that's what we are doing already for a couple of years. So that those advantages which we have locally in use of the digital resources and tools have driven efficiency of the companies, have driven also quite a bit of innovation around those sectors. And yes, with the risks of cybersecurity and geopolitical tensions, etc., there is increased, let's say, sensitivity then again that is where the modern world is heading right now. And from business perspective, businesses which are in the Baltics actually do enjoy this innovative environment, which is both on, let's say, infrastructure side, but also tools and other companies providing those services pretty advanced. So hope I'm answering the question, Florian, you raised from the digital aspect.
Yeah, thank you very much. Are there any other comments, Willis, for example, or should we? Yeah, Mr. Satlas, sorry. Of course. Thank you.
So we have to be frank to ourselves that Latvia has not experienced serious cyber attack up to now. So there were small cyber attacks, but they were not compared to the scale of cyber attacks which attacked, Albania and Montenegro, when they say they are highly digitalized countries, in their governance, and it took more than a half year to recover. So why they are attacked more than we, that's a question the attackers may answer. But basically, if we improve the digitalization in every field, we must also increase our anti-cyber capabilities. It's important that not just to develop digitalization, which is very important, but at the same time, we have to be prepared for serious cyber attacks.
Well, thank you very much. I would ask you another question, but exactly Estonia 2007, and also like we had in Germany an attack to the parliament, also in the European Parliament. We had also an attack to a municipality with big consequences in Eastern Germany, in Sachsen-Anhalt. So it's a very big threat. But Mr. President, to come to the next topic, you were always in favor of reforms. So the Baltic states and also Latvia is well known for, as we already discussed, the competitive tax system, the support of investors. But what do you think? What are basically the next steps now? What Latvia should take now in the upcoming years?
I like this question very much, we have become an over-regulated state. That means, especially it's painful for small and medium enterprises, and you cannot start your business, you cannot, let's say, develop your business because you have too much regulations, and sometimes they are irrational regulations. So, but up to now, before the elections, I talked to the parties, especially for those who are not in the government, they said, please propose, people will support you. We have a very advanced state. We regulate nearly each step of in our lives. It's not good for business. It's not good for development. It really decreases the speed of development. So I would say, very pragmatic deregulation. Cleaning out of our legal systems, especially on the governmental level, and on a municipal level, which are not favorable and even say friendly to small and medium enterprises.
This is a strong message. So thank you very much. It's a very strong
message, but nobody up to now has listened to me or let's say try to understand that is a problem.
Thank you very much. So maybe the right time for that. So Willis, what would you say about that strong advice?
Well, I have my own advice as well. So thank you. Thank you.
For sure.
No, I mean, every day working with foreign investors coming to LIA for the support or information. What we obviously see that, and we have mentioned, all of us have mentioned this educational part. We have good quality of labor, but it's not. We don't have enough quantity, and still we have to find a way how to invest in those people for lifelong learning, for university level, secondary schools, even kindergartens. I mean, there should be a clear vision and I would say perfect execution, step-by-step execution for us to really flourish, because the labor accessibility of labor is one of the top questions from investors. And since we see the pattern of those incoming, let's say, incoming requests, the smart specialization is one of the key aspects. So I would say if life sciences, ICT, this engineering, but of course I don't have the exact answer at the moment. How can we do this in no time? We need some time for that improvement to come real.
How big is in Latvia now this problem what we are facing all over Europe to get skilled people in different fields? So for example, for elder people in Germany, it's a very big problem to get somebody, maybe somebody from Bulgaria, Romania, and also in all of the fields, the classical educational fields, or in the mechanics, in the supermarkets. There's a big lack of people. How you see the situation in Latvia actually in this regards?
Yeah, if I may, then actually maybe this less skill. There is no like big problem with less skilled people. I mean labor. But when we talk, let's say for biomedicine company to enter Latvia and looking for let's say whatever 100 life science graduates, it's challenging already. So depends on the sector, but of course there are always solutions. You can attract professionals from other companies, right? Offer them something more, but still it could be a challenge. It actually depends on numbers you need, and I would say 50 is okay. Above 50, you have to think how to attract this, and then we come to the migration again. I mean, if it's from other European Union countries, there's no problem. But if it's from third countries, then we have quite strict regulations and maybe even lack of political will to change this, as Mr. Zatlers already mentioned in the beginning of this webinar. Yeah.
Thank you very much. This, I think, perfect fits for Olex. You talked before about the migration topic, immigration versus immigration. I think Lithuania had a much bigger problem concerning immigration in the last decade. But of course, it's a topic. So how would you see basically these challenges in the labor market, and also to get people here to Latvia to basically not maybe just to live in Riga, but also maybe to live in other cities on the countryside? How you see this focus basically now? Also, just you said before, Riga is not New York, but it's as beautiful as New York. But how you basically see this challenge basically to bring people not just also to Riga, but also to other areas in Latvia?
Okay, yes. Thank you very much for your question. In my view, the most important areas to implement structural reforms in Latvia is quality, or to increase the quality of education, to increase the quality of healthcare, and to increase the quality of your life in an environment, right? This is how people are satisfied with the quality of life in here in Latvia, right? So if we speak about the quality of education, we should raise specific skills and competencies for which there is a very strong demand, because at the same time, when we are talking about labor shortages in Latvia, we also see that for some population groups and for some regions, employment rates are not too big, right? For example, even before COVID-19 pandemics, there were two population groups with rather low employment rates. First population group are young people. This is because of low prevalence of vocational education and apprenticeships. And the second population groups, even with more serious problems, is upper middle-aged men, right? And this is because of low incidence of lifelong learning, low digital skills, and rapidly deteriorating health condition. So quality of education in our schools and in our universities. So because sometimes we have such a situation that very smart people are finishing their secondary schools, and they look at these education opportunities, and they see that there is not too big good education opportunities here in Latvia, so they migrate to other European countries. At the same time, there are some immigrants for other countries not from the European Union, which want to obtain higher education in Latvia, but this but of course this demand is just to receive a higher education in one of the EU countries. So this is not demand to receive that education of very good quality. All right, so if we look at our official statistics, we have very many foreign students. The number of foreign students in Latvia exceeds the sum of foreign students in Estonia and Lithuania. But what these foreign students are studying, in which universities, so they are private universities, in which education quality is not so good at all, right? So these people migrate from non-EU countries to receive such a officially European diploma, right? So there is such an exchange of people. Smart people go outside, not so smart people go inside. So this is not a very good situation. How to improve the quality of life in general? In your question, you mentioned how to stimulate the economic prospects of other Latvian regions, not only Riga. But why we should compare Riga with only with other Latvian regions? We should compare Riga with other European capital cities like Tallinn, Vilnius, and other cities. And Riga is lagging behind in GDP per capita, in economic growth rate, and also in the quality of life, how people are satisfied with the quality of life. And there is a problem that quality of life satisfaction in Riga, according to the most recent European Commission survey, is lower than in Tallinn and Vilnius. And this is not only a survey, it is also reflected in Riga demographics and in Riga economic growth, right? So if people are not satisfied with the quality of life, they leave city. People which are young people, rich people, right? They can afford, if they can afford to live outside Riga, they use this opportunity and live outside Riga, and this actually is a problem. So how we can solve it? For example, with the most active use of European Union funds in Riga, because in Riga we have very many foreign direct investments, but lack of investments from for example, EU funds. But then with EU funds, we have this political priority to raise the quality of life in other regions, not in Riga. So whether it is a right priority, it is very difficult to say, because without these European Union funds, economic situation in other Latvian regions would be even not good as it is now. But somehow Riga should compete with other European Union capital cities, right? And about your question with this immigration, should we enhance immigration? We should enhance immigration of smart people with very relevant education and skills. If we will enhance immigration of people with low productivity, people here can earn only low wages. And if you add people with low wages, how you can increase the average income here in Latvia, right? So your average income can only go down. Of course, for some firms, for some specific sectors, they are for this immigration of low qualified employees because they will be better off as a result of this low qualified immigration. But we should think about the country overall, on average. And I think that the country on average can benefit only from migration of smart people with high productivity.
Thank you very much. Maris, 3-4 sentences due to the time before I'm giving the concluding remarks to Mr. Zatlers. What is your experience with EU funds, and how this works actually, and how basically you see here the opportunities or challenges?
Yes, thank you, Florian. And well, obviously, you know, EU funding is instrumental part in Latvia's economical development. Nobody can question that. But at the same time, I just wanted to say that, and I think our country reasonably manages that. But I want to reflect on what President Zatlers said. I mean, it is so true that not only in terms of local regulation, but also to some extent in the EU funds adoption, the over-regulation is still a massively present. You know, if and especially for small and medium enterprises, sometimes in order to qualify for a I don't know, 50,000 euros program, you would need to complete, you know, piles and piles of papers and all of that. And unfortunately, for some small SME sector businesses, that is still not made, you know, fully accessible simply because of the over-regulation. But that is not a local problem that much. That is more a general but since President Zatlers raised it, I would like to clearly voice a support for balancing out, for a reasonable attitude, and for like really where the substance should prevail over form, and we should reduce the form requirements where at all possible.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zatlers, I would ask you kindly for some concluding remarks, maybe some lessons learned out of this intensive discussion, and to all of you, thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope we learned a lot, and we raised some topics which were not raised before. But our success is based on Nordic Protestant ethics. We should finish sharp on time. Congratulations on doing that well.
Thank you very much. It was fantastic. Thank you. Have a nice day.